Boldwood presents The Book Club Killer, written by Ross Greenwood and read by David Thorpe. Chapter 1. DCI Barton. Friday the 6th of December. The silence in the car was thick with unspoken thoughts. Barton had slumped in the passenger seat, while Xander drummed the fingers of one hand on the steering wheel, his focus fixed on the road ahead. "So?" Xander eventually said, breaking the hush. "Cox is back next week, eh? I saw her pop in today." "Yep." "What are you planning to do with yourself now your covering year is up?" Barton shrugged, his gaze drifting outside the vehicle. The early December night was dark and cold, the streetlights casting long shadows on the empty paths. "I've been running through my options," he mumbled. "Chippendale? Strictly Come Dancing? Rhinos on Ice? Rewiring the International Space Station?" "Sadly, none of the aforementioned. All my choices seem to involve me sitting behind a desk." Xander chuckled. "Worried you'll be climbing the walls within a week?" "Yeah, exactly. There's no current need for another DI at Peterborough Major Crimes, so the possibilities here are limited. I spotted a position in Lincolnshire, but decided I'm too long in the tooth for commuting anywhere." Xander's eyes flicked towards Barton. "You look knackered, John. More than usual." Barton sighed. That was how he felt. His wife had bought new scales, and they confirmed what he already knew. He was back over 20 stone, but it wasn't only his body weighing him down. For months, the team had hunted for a serial rapist in the city. They finally caught him on Monday, but only after he'd damaged the lives of 4 women forever. "This last case got to me," he replied. "With all the girls a similar age to my daughter, I haven't slept well." He trailed off, the image of the final victim's bruises fresh in his mind. "Yeah," Xander said quietly. "It was a grueling investigation." Barton didn't comment, lost in his own reflections, as the familiar streets of his hometown raced by in a blur of houses. As they turned onto Barton's Road, Xander spoke again. "Did you hear what Malik said about A&E this afternoon?" "No." "His wife took an uncle down to the hospital a little after midday. It was sick only inside. Companions were told to wait outside. She only got in because he'd had a stroke and she was pushing the wheelchair. Reckoned it was so busy the atmosphere reminded her of a bitter football match between 2 local rivals." "The staff and the patients?" "Something like that." "I'm not surprised. There was an email from Uniform before we left the office saying ambulances are currently stuck waiting with patients on board, but so are response vehicles with sorting out all the aggro. People are getting desperate. There were 18 ambulances queued up one night last week. Grim scenes. I suppose it's always chaos in the run-up to Christmas. Our custody cells were filling up this afternoon from a drunken brawl at a works event. The boss had only taken his team out for lunch with the trimmings." Xander frowned. "Sometimes it seems like everything's falling apart." Barton huffed out a breath. "I keep having the same thoughts. Maybe I'm better off out of it. I could leave the force, become a private investigator, be my own man, live on my wits, taking cases nobody else wants, stealthily tracking people with cunning and guile." Xander laughed loudly. "John, the only location you'd blend into the background at is a wrestling match, and only then if you were leaning against the ropes in a lycra singlet waiting to be tagged." Barton chuckled. "They could call me Badass Barton. Your family call you that already." Barton flicked his eyes over at the driver. "You're in top form." Xander bobbed his head. "The twins are happy at play school 3 days a week. They'll be in the infants next year. Kelly says at last she's feeling human again and can't wait to work. And we've booked a short breakaway in January, just the two of us. Nice, but aren't your parents too old to babysit the boys? They are. Who's having them then? You and Holly. Barton grinned. I see. Lovely to be in the loop. I better warn the neighbours their peace is going to be shattered. They're much calmer now. Really? Sorry. No. Xander indicated to pull onto the drive. I'll pop in for a minute, say hello to Holly. Thank her for offering. I've not seen her for a while. Nothing to do with me telling you she was baking different types of cookies and cakes today, which she hopes to use the best of when the business is open. Cake never hurt a man. Amen. Barton smiled faintly. She'll be pleased to see you. Not getting out of the house for work means she appreciates visitors. Is the cafe thing progressing? Very much so. The loan has been approved. A site is all that's needed. She was checking out a promising one today. Xander nodded. Kelly still feels bad about not going in as partners, but twin boys have become more demanding than we imagined. A part-time job is all she can handle. Holly understands, so no worries. By the way, don't mention me appearing exhausted to her. Why not? It won't be an opinion as far as she's concerned, merely ammunition. As they pulled up outside Barton's house, a figure emerged from the shadows. Barton got out of the car and forced a grin onto his face. It was one of the homeowners who lived at the bottom of their cul-de-sac, Ken, a retired teacher and a gossip who could talk for England. John! He called out, despite being only a metre away, his shout echoing in the quiet night. Just the person I wanted! Barton couldn't help being intrigued. Their resident whisperer and rumour mill stoker was usually like a calm newsreader with his mundane tales. Tonight he seemed unduly agitated. What's up, Ken? Barton asked, stopping next to him. Under the bright white glare of the LED streetlight, his neighbour's face was etched with concern. I went outside to lob a bag of rubbish into my wheelie bin, he said, lowering his voice. Heard some bellowing at number 19. Nasty stuff. Sounded like she was really losing it. Barton frowned as he pictured the properties at the end of the road. 19 was a long, narrow, semi-detached house that had been empty for a year after the previous elderly owner had died. It was Ken who had informed him 6 months ago that a young couple had moved in and were planning to modernise the place. Barton had nodded at the woman a few times in passing not long after they arrived, but she'd avoided eye contact. What sort of stuff? Asked Xander. Angry tones, replied Ken, his eyes wide. Furious, but also kind of crazed, if you know what I mean. Like someone who's not quite right in their mind. Barton felt a knot of apprehension forming in his stomach. He remembered the case they had just solved, the vacant expression of the final victim, the devastated boyfriend, the weeping father, and the raging mother with murder on her mind. Did you see anyone about? Ken shook his head. No, the curtains were drawn. I daren't knock. I don't suppose you rang 999? No, I knew you'd help. It had been a few years since a neighbour had come over to ask Barton for assistance. Visits for aid or advice had been common when he was in uniform. Naughty kids, excessive noise, missing cats, you name it. Still, he wasn't relishing the prospect of getting involved in a neighbour's arguments, one he suspected might be fuelled by alcohol. I'm not the right bloke for dealing with a domestic. That's usually a task for stab-vest-wearing, baton-wielding, taser-pointing officers in uniform. Ken's expression turned grave. It might be dangerous, but you're a brave man. Barton smiled, despite thinking of the Billy Joel song about the good dying young, then puffed out his cheeks. God knew why he was debating the issue. Barton was always going to check the moment the man had opened his mouth. Uniform would probably be hours anyway. He looked at Xander, who nodded with a tight smile. "Right," said Barton, his reply firm. "Let's go and have a chat with our neighbour." As they trudged towards number 19, the tapping of their shoes on the damp pavement the only sound, a sense of foreboding swept over him. He hoped he was wrong, but the Barton belly told him this wouldn't be a pleasant social call. His relaxing night had taken an ominous turn, and Barton suspected, with a heavy heart, his working week was far from over. Ken had set off with them, but needed to scamper with his much shorter legs to keep up. "The couple's names are Lily and Fraser, but I doubt he's there." "Why is that?" asked Xander. "Fraser moved out 3 months back after he met another woman at work. It wasn't an amicable split with Lily, and I don't believe he's returned since." Xander scowled at Ken. "Are you saying Lily's arguing with herself?" Ken stopped in front of them at the entrance to number 19's driveway. "That's why I'm so worried. I think it's just her and the baby." Chapter 2. DCI Barton. A chill ran down Barton's spine. A young woman, alone with a baby, shouting and sounding crazed. A recipe for disaster. He decided Ken would be calmer if he was given something to do, preferably something that kept him out of the way. "OK, Ken, stay at the roadside. Grab your mobile. If there's any drama, ring 999 and ask for the police and an ambulance." Ken nodded, eyes narrowing. Back hunched, he took his phone out as though he were drawing his pistol. Xander strode to the front door and knocked loudly. The shouting, which Ken had heard, had stopped. No lights were on. Nobody answered. Barton rapped his knuckles on it. "Police! Come to the door, please." After 30 seconds of continued silence, a howl of angst came from inside. Barton and Xander exchanged a wary glance. Xander put his hand on the door handle and pushed down. There was a squeak as it depressed. He gave it a shove and it swung wide open. With Barton leading, they stepped through the doorway to be greeted by a wave of frigid air. The temperature was lower than the winter night outside. Barton paused at the stairs and looked up them. No movement. The silence inside was more unsettling than the cry they'd heard. Barton remained still as his ears and eyes strained. A dull ache throbbed in his shoulders and neck, the weight of a long and stressful week settling into his bones. He longed for a hot meal and the comfort of his armchair. But remembering the woman's scream, the raw desperation in her voice, he spurred himself into action. "Lily? It's Detective Chief Inspector John Barton. I live down the road. Is everything okay?" Again, no reply. Xander tutted. "Didn't you know she had a baby?" "She was walking a big male golden retriever the last time I saw her, but I don't remember a pram. I must admit it was quite a while ago, and I was in a rush." The house was eerily quiet, the only sound a hum from what was probably a fridge somewhere in the depths. The narrow, dark hallway pressed in on him. As Xander moved forward, the streetlight at the pavement was strong enough to shine in and unveil a threadbare carpet and peeling wallpaper. A faint, mouldy scent hung in the air. Xander flicked a light switch, and a dim, uncovered bulb came on above him. Barton tested a doorknob that he guessed would be for the lounge. It turned with a soft click. He nudged the door open to reveal a sparsely furnished room. A woman stood by the fireplace, her back to them, dressed in a grey t-shirt and loose jogging bottoms. Her dishevelled, shoulder-length brown hair gave her the air of a mad scientist. but it was the bare feet that caught Barton's eye. "Lily?" he asked. In slow motion she turned around. Clutched in her hand was a large kitchen knife, its blade shimmering in the weak light. She pointed it at them. "It's too much," she murmured, her words little more than a whisper. "I want it all to stop, but he's angry. No sleep, not for anyone. Voices outside." Barton and Xander shared another look. The woman mumbled again, her phrases rambling, incoherent. She appeared to be in a state of shock, or perhaps something worse. "Lily," Barton began, his voice calm and steady, "we're police officers. Could you please put down the knife?" She bared her teeth, and the hair rose on Barton's neck. Lily's skin was pale and drawn. Her skin, nearly translucent from the lounge's light glow, stretched taut over the delicate bones of her face. The chill of the house seemed to cling to her breath misting with each shallow exhale. Eyes, sunken and bloodshot from lack of sleep, burned with a dull inner fire, while her hand trembled as she gripped the handle. "He's upstairs," she muttered, pointing the tip towards the ceiling. "It's not fair." A soft cry, clearly audible, cut through the silence, the unmistakable sound of a baby. Barton spoke louder, firmer. "Lower the knife, Lily." She peered down at her hand and appeared to see the blade for the first time. She let it fall onto the hearth with a clatter. With a rush of adrenaline, Barton marched forward, swept up the weapon, then dropped it behind the sofa. "Stay with her, Xander." Barton ascended the stairs, his footsteps muffled by the carpet. The baby's cries grew louder as he approached 3 open doors and a closed one. Barton checked the open rooms, all empty. He paused outside the shut one. A low rumble, almost bear-like, emanated from behind it. Barton's heart pounded. That didn't sound like a golden retriever. With a deep breath, Barton slowly opened the door. The room was narrow and cluttered, with a smallish blue cot in the far corner and a wardrobe facing it. Clothes, mostly blue, were scattered on the floor, along with nappy bags and wipes. A stocky, long-haired yellow dog was sitting by the cot, eyes focused on the baby, nostrils flaring. The beast dipped his head, then let out another lengthy growl as it twisted to face the intruder. Barton lowered himself down, knees straining. "Hey there, who's a nice doggy?" After a couple of seconds of slow blinking, the hound wagged its tail furiously. It seemed to accept Barton was now in charge and released a soft whimper of relief as it crawled towards what must have seemed a big man. Barton reached down and stroked the animal from head to tail. "Good boy. Stay there." Barton approached the cot with trepidation. The cries had subsided. He gently lifted the blanket, which mostly covered what he assumed to be a boy's face. The child's complexion was white and pasty, eyes closed. Barton felt for a pulse, his fingers trembling against the cold skin. He couldn't be sure if one was there or not. The baby appeared lifeless. Then its eyes flicked open. Barton nearly screamed the place down. It had been a long time since he'd held a baby. He carefully picked up the child, cradling it in his arms. The infant was surprisingly light, almost weightless, but chubby fingers pressed against his face. A surge of protectiveness came over Barton, making him fiercely determined to protect this little life. As he carried the bundle out of the room, he cast a glance around at the retriever. The dog whined again, its eyes filled with a strange sadness. Barton suspected the animal had sensed Lily's volatile behaviour and protected the baby. He decided not to think about when and why the knife had materialised. Back in the lounge, Xander appeared to be holding the woman upright.
She wouldn't sit, just started weeping. She's freezing and so thin, but we'll never get an ambulance for this situation ahead of heart attacks or strokes. We could drive her down.
Barton recalled their conversation about turmoil at the hospital. Where would this mother and baby fit in down there? He scrutinised Lily, who had pulled herself closer to Xander, her face buried in his chest. She was probably trying to suck out some warmth. Barton normally resembled an elephant seal, but even he shivered in the dense cold surrounding him. They had a lot of questions to ask her, but right now, the priority was ensuring the mother and baby were safe and warm.
Pick her up if you have to. We'll take them to my place. Is the kid okay? Yeah, seems to be. Is this a crime scene?
Barton understood if it was reported as one, the chances of this woman keeping her child would be slim.
We can talk about that at mine. Get them in the warmth first. I'll ring Shirley from social services. Ask for some advice.
You're sure you want them at yours? Just a neighbour being helpful. Barton found a changing bag, which contained baby products, and headed outside. He considered for a moment how wise it was to take Lily and her child back, but decided that he wouldn't worry. Barton would do what felt right, whatever the consequences. It dawned on him, as he left Lily's place, that thoughts like those might mean he'd made up his mind about his future. Chapter 3. The Book Club Killer. The biting December wind rattles the twinkling Christmas lights strung across the entrance facade of The Bell in Stilton. I involuntarily shiver, but still pause to admire the stone building. A faint smile plays on my lips. It has always been my favourite pub. Strange to think I've been walking through this door for decades, long before the book club launched. I suppose it's one of my longest relationships. But I don't come as often nowadays. I suspect none of us do. I should make more of an effort to visit, because its leaded windows are glowing with a welcoming amber light, promising refuge from the cold and dark. Few establishments draw customers in like the Bell. Centuries of tradition await inside. Sometimes I feel as if the ghosts of long-forgotten guests are surrounding me, enjoying my company. Benign spirits urging me not to leave, perhaps never to leave. I miss the monthly meets too, but doing only one book a year before Christmas does make it special. Makes sense too, after everything that's happened. Still, the lively discussions, the shared passion for literature, the laughs and drink, the bonding and taking of sides have become an important part of life for many of the group. You can usually see excitement on people's faces as they arrive, sadness when they leave. But nothing stays the same. The Bell is a former 15th century coaching inn set on the Great North Road, about 10 miles south of Peterborough. History oozes from its every pore. The modern A1 bypasses it these days, and the wide street is often devoid of traffic, but the pub remains a busy and popular place, frequented by locals, tourists and business people alike. The staff are friendly, the fire's always lit, and the atmosphere warm and convivial. All of which makes what I'm about to do harder, but needs must. I doubt there'll be any harm done to the pub's top-notch reputation. Suspicious eyes will soon wander elsewhere. I suspect numerous employees and regulars might relish the drama, even though they may not admit to it. I stride through the striking doorway into the courtyard beyond and past the well. Shame I can't lob someone in, but there's a grate over it now. Health and safety ruining my fun. The manager told me, due to the inn being Grade 1 listed, there was all manner of fuss when the grate was being installed. Like a comedy sketch, with a large cluster of people with clipboards, all watching while one person screwed in 4 bolts. I push open the heavy door to the bar. Despite not quite being 7 o'clock, it's already bustling. The 22 bedrooms provide a steady stream of hungry patrons even midweek. A table will have been reserved for the book club. A counter sells cheese. Stilton, naturally. I may buy some later, but it's addictive stuff and different from what's sold in most supermarkets. I find it hard not to eat it all in one go. The Bell remains a place of laughter, shared stories, and spilled secrets. Friendships are forged, surrounded by the sense of wood smoke, ale, and roasted meat. But tonight, it will become something else. The club evenings used to be raucous affairs, stretching until closing, but everyone's much older now. Many will wear the ravages of time this evening. Most still drink alcohol, though, so I expect voices rising and falling in animated conversation. 5 couples, linked by work, enjoying life. In the past, other customers peered over with jealous eyes, some even asking how to join. But there had been an agreement to keep the group small and manageable. It was a select and exclusive gathering. We felt lucky, and 10 was a good number. Of course, only 8 of us remain. Chapter 4. DCI Barton. Ken was standing poised on Lily's driveway when Barton came into view, hand raised, thumb quivering above the dial button, with an expression set firm, as though ready to verify the launch codes. He lowered his phone, and a brief flash of disappointment passed over his face. "Everything okay?" Barton gave him a respectful nod. "Stand down, Ken. Lily's boiler is broken. I think she was shouting at it. We'll take them to mine to warm up. Great work for telling me. Nobody should be in a cold home, especially with a baby." "Tommy all right?" "He is." "No harm done, then?" "None. Night, Ken. See you soon." Barton patted his shoulder as he passed him, then marched back up the street. His hands were full, so he gave his front door a kick. Holly came and opened it. She examined Barton's face, then his package. "I've told you about making unhealthy food choices, John. Go and return that baby." "Very funny. It's Lily's down the road." The boy started to cry. "Oh my God, what have you done now?" She stepped back to let him in. Barton gasped at the welcoming warmth. He quickly explained what had happened. Holly's mouth dropped open. "Poor girl. I only spoke to her a few days ago and was a bit worried about her state of mind. Where is she?" Xander appeared at the door carrying Lily. She struggled out of his arms and groaned as she seemed to feel the heat. Holly pulled her into a hug. "In the lounge, Lily. Let's get you cosy." Barton and Xander followed the women. Gizmo, the greyhound, was lying in front of the fire. He lifted one eyelid, then swiftly shut it. Holly plugged in the heated throw she kept in the living room for when she didn't want to put the central heating on, bought for her by Barton as a gift after he'd seen a horrifying energy bill. "Sit down here, Lily. I'll turn this on and you'll be toasty in minutes." Holly took the bundle out of Barton's hands. The baby was quiet now, but his little fists were clenched. Holly unwrapped the blanket, gently rolled him onto his stomach on the sofa, and tapped the back of his baby grow. There was a packed sound. Barton opened the bag he'd brought from Lily's house and removed a fresh set of wipes and a nappy. He passed them to Holly, who couldn't help smiling. As ever, it was thus. Changing mat? Barton shook his head. Holly stared at him for a moment. Go back and get it. One of you carry the baby's cot if it's light enough. See if there are some small jars of food. Tommy should be on solids by now. Barton suspected she wanted them gone from the room.
I'll ring child services, he said.
Holly's eyes conveyed a message he'd deciphered countless times. Not yet, she replied. Let me chat with Lily. We'll talk when you return. Barton studied Lily, who was head down, cowering under the throw.
Okay.
Holly poked a finger in his direction. And don't forget Vince.
Who the hell is that?
The dog. Chapter 5. The Waitress. The Bell Inn is absolutely buzzing. That lively, festive kind of energy you only ever get in a busy pub a few weeks before Christmas. Despite being rushed off my feet, I can appreciate the noise and the ambience. Management did a great job with the refurb. The low-beamed ceilings and exposed brick walls, which were getting so marked and dusty, now shine from the new lighting. People bask in the plush velvet armchairs by the crackling fireplaces. Laughter and chatter dance over the clinking of cutlery, and the sturdy oak tables, polished to a gleam, invite you to settle in for a proper cosy inn experience. In fact, every single corner whispers comfort. Tonight, though, table service in the bar is out of the question. There are simply too many people, too much of a throng. Even with my usual instinct to fuss over folk, I can't possibly manage that. It's a night for everyone to jostle their way to and from the bar, pint and wine glasses lifted high, and enjoy the hustle and bustle of the season. I spot a young couple, both tall, step through the entrance, and my heart sinks a little because I've seen them in here a few times. He's got those hopeful, raised eyes looking for a table. I shake my head even before he asks. Most people this evening are repeat customers, and they understand you usually need to book. The Tax Titans, a local group of professionals, for instance, made their reservation when they left a year ago, just as they've done for decades. I should know. I was working that night. I remember when the club first started. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and others a lifetime past. Most of the members were already regulars. All lived in the village. The main connection, though, was that at least one person from each of the 5 couples had to work at Jones & Singh Accountants. Everyone seemed so young and vibrant back then, at the top of their games. Ageing has been kinder to some, but nobody isn't at least a touch weathered. I suppose we were all beautiful once. Tonight they've placed their meal orders, starters eaten, and the mains are arriving soon. For a moment, the crowd parts and my gaze drifts over the group. There's Vijay Singh, same as ever. The predatory glint in his eyes remains unchanged since his wife died. The same woman, Morwyn Jones, is the object of his slow glances and compliments, as it was even when Avani Singh was present. When the Joneses arrived this evening, Morwyn's husband, Reese, held the door for her, so she came into the bar first. His jaw bunched just a touch when she made a beeline for Vijay and took a seat by his side. She's laughing now. Honestly, Vijay isn't that funny. Her hand rests too long on his arm, her hair tossed back, those 2 white teeth flashing. I used to think Reese was completely oblivious to it all, but he's such a clever man, a nice one too. Maybe experience taught him to pretend, and the years have crafted him into an expert. But his mask is slipping. Perhaps he forgets why he turns a blind eye. The cupcakes, another tradition, sit covered in cling film in their usual spot in the opening in the wall, which once would have been used as a pass-through, but now enables us to see inside that part of the bar. The person responsible for the cakes originally made them from scratch, but they get them from the supermarket now and stick various little edible book titles on top. They never admit to it, of course, but I spotted them buying the cakes in Waitrose near Peterborough railway station last year. It was a fluke encounter when the trains were delayed, and I fancied a decent sandwich. I pretended not to have looked, but the desserts were sitting in their basket. They'll have forgotten that now, even if they were suspicious at the time. That's clear because, when I was collecting glasses, I overheard them telling Mary Thwaite how they had a new recipe for tonight. I like Mary and her husband, Eric, although they're somewhat dull. Mary's a librarian, but Eric has long been retired. He's fading from this world, if you ask me, but I always get the impression he doesn't miss much. Those sharp eyes of his scanning the room, they've got a sense of humour behind them, though he keeps most of it for himself. Bernie Goodman is next to him. Dead man is perhaps more apt. He makes 89-year-old Eric appear positively robust. Cancer is a cruel disease, killing by consumption, but taking its time, seemingly enjoying its spread. His wife, Beryl, is laughing too loud, a starling chirping for attention, but outshone by the parakeet Katarzyna beside her. Katarzyna, who hailed from Poland long ago, just shines, as she has done since her husband's premature death. A woman reborn. She has never brought anyone else with her, unlike Vijay, who has paraded the occasional trophy after Avani passed. He catches my eye and waves. Such a clothes horse, that man. I've no idea if his suit cost 500 quid or 5,000, but he looks priceless. Yet, he only has eyes for one, or perhaps two. That's the 8 of them. Soon to be fewer. I give the group a last glance as another staff member calls for my attention. There's something extra in the air tonight. I'm not completely sure what, but I sense it. From the outside, the book club members all seem to get on, but not everyone is as pleasant as they appear, nor as honest. There will be undercurrents of friction, even resentment. How do I know? Because I have secrets too. Chapter 6. DCI Barton. Barton had planned to return to Lily's property anyway because it wasn't secure. While Xander went upstairs and manoeuvred the cot down, Barton checked the fridge. He discovered a 4-pint bottle of whole milk, an elderly cucumber, and not much else. The cupboards were equally sparse, save for a few jars of baby food and a pack of rice cakes. He noticed paperwork on the kitchen table as he put the jars in his pocket. The top letter had lots of red writing, demanding the recipient to pay now. Barton headed to the front door and held it open. As Xander manhandled the cot through, Barton threw the changing mat in as he passed by. Xander frowned at him.
Let's go, John. Lock up.
There are only 2 tubs of food.
You've probably forgotten. They'll eat most things at Tommy's age. Holly will know. OK,
replied Barton, clicking his fingers at the dog who'd been following him around. Come on, Pooch. The retriever, tail wagging, barked at the coat rack near the entrance where a lead was hung up. As Barton was attaching the lead to the collar, he saw a name on it. Vince. He took the key from behind the door, went outside, locked up, then set off up the road with the dog ambling beside him. Xander followed, struggling with the cumbersome wooden cot.
Sure you can cope with that animal on your own, John? I've also got the baby food. Do tell me if that thing gets too heavy. It's lucky I'm in the prime of my life. That's the spirit.
By the time they'd reached Barton's lounge again, Xander had sworn loudly a few times and knocked a porcelain ornament over in the hall, which had broken. Barton had never liked it, so at least the evening hadn't all been negative. Vince edged into the room, peering around cautiously, nostrils flaring. After a few seconds, he dragged Barton towards Gizmo, who remained by the fire. Gizmo opened both eyes, stared at Barton as if to say, "You're kidding me." His canine visitor gave the greyhound a cursory sniff, then flopped down beside him, close to the heat from the flames. Holly had the little boy sitting on her lap, drinking from a plastic cup. He waved a plump hand at Barton, like royalty greeting his adoring public. A gentle snore came from the brown throw Lily was under. "He's fine, John. Plenty of puppy fat. Big poop, but no nappy rash. Lily's been caring for him."
It didn't seem that way. What did she say?
Just that she was so tired. I said she seemed pale when I met her walking past our house with Vince and Tommy this week. You'll never guess what her bastard husband Fraser did to her.
Left her for another woman?
That's not the half of it. He cleared off, took all the money, hasn't been in touch. When I spoke to her, she told me she was worried her credit card would be declined, but her kitchen cupboards were empty.
Yeah, well, they're still barren, so perhaps it was.
I should have pushed harder to help. She rushed off, saying she was fine, but it sounds like everything was far from okay. Xander dropped into an armchair.
Shirley can give us the best advice.
Holly's gaze swept from Barton to Xander, who received a smile more chilling than anything Medusa could offer. Holly was the only person who used Xander's first name. "Good to see you, Sean. Kelly will be expecting you. Tell her I found something and I'll call tomorrow." Xander took the hint and rose from his seat.
"Will do. Catch you later."
Xander gave Barton a look of grim understanding, like a soldier who had been dispatched to warn their reserves of a huge approaching enemy force, while knowing those left behind were doomed. When Xander had gone, Holly settled the drowsy Tommy in his cot, rested a thick blanket on him, then placed a cuddly bear at his side, which Barton had last seen in Luke's room. "John, we don't need to ring social services. Let me help Lily."
Lily's a stranger. She could have any number of problems.
She can stay here for a few days, regain her strength. We'll support her.
Great.
I can't wait to wake up with her hands around my throat, or worse, the contents of our knife block sticking out my stomach. Holly's stare narrowed. "I never ask you about anything concerning your work."
"I don't mention my cases."
"Do you think I've never seen the news? Seen your dark eyes? Heard your complaints in your sleep?"
"That's wind."
Holly wasn't in a joking mood. "Trust me on this. I know women like Lily well enough. I have dealt with them for decades at school. They try and they try, all on their own, with no money, no support, until one day it all gets too much. They aren't terrible parents, but for a moment they are overwhelmed. With a little assistance and encouragement, they can swiftly get back on track. Yes, and there are council departments to assist them. You only said this week that vital services in the county were swamped." Barton perched on the sofa.
"That's true."
"Lily needs a friend. Give me some time with her. If you still want to call Shirley on Monday, then that's okay." Barton reached into the cot and stroked the now sleeping boy's arm. Tommy's mother was quietly snoring, as were Gizmo and Vince.
"Fair enough. I told Ken her boiler had broken, and that's why she was shouting.
but her heating shouldn't have been off, so I'll check it in the morning. Okay. Let's talk tomorrow.
Shall I sleep down here?
Holly chuckled. No, I'll do it. If she groggily woke up and heard you breathing heavily in the same room, she'd panic she was having a nightmare about a grizzly's lair.
Not to mention it smelling like one.
Exactly. By the way, there are some important matters I need to chat to you about. Barton trudged off to make them a hot drink, muttering under his breath, suspecting life had just become much more complicated. Chapter 7. The Book Club Killer. I'm pretty spaced out now. A few strong drinks, loads of lovely food, and the warmth and relaxing smells and sounds that only an open fire can provide. Saying that, it's been a long night with some nervous tension. The bill has arrived. Seems a scary amount, but there are 8 of us, and I'm not so old that I've forgotten prices always rise. In a way, it's a bargain, purely for the cover the meal has provided. Reese rises from his chair. He pings a dessert spoon against his glass of Talisker single malt. When all eyes are on him, he smiles his most reassuring smile, the one that no doubt made his business such a success, at least at the beginning.
Well, the votes are in on which book we're choosing from the 8 that were put forward. I can reveal the winner of the novel we need to read in the next 2.5 weeks is The Sleigh Before Christmas by Desmond Finch.
We all join in with whistles or boos.
No, the majority have spoken. Some of you aren't over keen on crime, but hopefully this won't be too gruesome. Should be nice and festive too, and something for us to get our teeth into, leading to meaty discussions next time.
Reese seems unsteady on his feet. He takes a moment, then continues.
As always, we have a reservation here for 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve, which gives you plenty of opportunity to order the paperback or buy it on Kindle and read it. I look forward to seeing you all then. Our resident baker asked me to remind you all to take a cupcake home with you. Improved recipe this year and bigger than usual.
Reese retakes his seat, face flushed red. I wonder if that's from the whiskey or the stress he's been suffering from of late. He seems distracted, confused. Perhaps he's not a well man either. It's probably an age thing. The body's complaints become difficult to ignore. Turning a blind eye is harder. I suppose Reese suffers at times, even though he can be a kind, thoughtful fellow. To a point, of course. Reese's eyes widen. He climbs back to his feet. Strange to see him so drunk. Has something happened I don't know about?
Apologies.
Reese puts 7 blank envelopes in the middle and mixes them up. He theatrically chooses one, then adds another blank envelope, which will contain his name, and stirs them again with a flourish. 2 of them fly off the table. The person next to him picks both up with a shake of their head. Reese puffs out his cheeks as though the effort has exhausted him.
Secret Santas.
Each member takes a pick, but Reese doesn't sit down.
I have another announcement. A commercial statement more than personal. Actually, I guess it's both. Everyone here has played a part in making Jones & Singh Accountants a remarkable success, even if it's been supporting from behind the scenes. I thank you all sincerely. So, my heart is somewhat heavy, but also relieved to make you aware I have decided to retire in the new year.
There is stunned silence. None of us expected that. Interesting. Tonight, the 8 surviving members of the Tax Titans' lives are going to change in more ways than one. Reese's dropped bombshell will complicate everything. Let's not forget the wild cards either, of course. Will those people play their hands? It could make all the difference. Chapter 8. Rhys Jones. Rhys Jones stayed sitting in the car while his wife stomped towards the electric garage door. She stood in front of it, hands on hips, as though sheer willpower alone would force it to fulfill its role. He tutted. Such an emotional, highly strung, passionate woman. Actually, that was being kind. Angry seemed to be more her default emotion lately. He supposed her fiery nature had initially been a significant part of the attraction. Rude would be another word to describe her. She'd called him a fat chuff shortly before they'd left for the Bell. Normally, her slurs bounced off him, as though his layer of insulation, which admittedly had grown considerably these past few years, made him bulletproof. Insult-proof, a visible shield, if you like, especially with him not knowing what a chuff was. Tonight, it had been the expression of disgust on her face when she'd said it that had pierced his armour. Contempt and a mocking tone mixed with revulsion. Ungrateful cow. He bit down on the cupcake he was holding, taking a huge chunk as a small, pathetic act of retaliation. It was a self-inflicted blow, especially considering her taunt. Morwen pounded the metal door with her fist, then stamped out of sight around to the rear entrance. She'd need to lift the door by hand. He understood that was usually a blue job, i.e. one of his, but he'd felt weaker of late. It was his firm. The long hours, the arguments, the general stress-filled nature of it all of which had gradually drained the strength from him. There wasn't much left in the tank. He needed to pause, rebuild, and he'd be unable to do that working 60-hour weeks. Perhaps he should have discussed his retirement with VJ beforehand. That was, assuming the guy could have pulled himself away from chatting up Morwen for a moment. Rhys took a further big mouthful and nodded approvingly. Magnificent cupcake, although a new recipe his arse. Rhys enjoyed his desserts, and this was shopboard. He stuffed the final little piece of chocolate chip loveliness into his mouth, folded the paper and hid it in his suit's inside pocket. With a grunt, he heaved himself out of the vehicle just as the garage door opened. Morwen appeared, arms raised like a biblical strongman. He meandered past her to open the front door of their house. Another nip of whiskey in his office would help him forget his woes. Morwen scoffed. "I'll put the car away, shall I?" He shouted back, "I'm over the limit. I believe the phrase is past your best." He ignored the barb and made his way to the drinks cabinet behind his desk. 2 fingers of Glenfiddich went into a crystal glass. He liked that American saying, especially with having thick digits. He dropped into his luxurious executive chair and finally relaxed. Felt brilliant, in fact. So chilled. So pleasant to be home. The book club had been nerve-wracking earlier. Why had he felt so nervous? He'd done talks at accountants' AGMs with hundreds of high-powered people present. Surely this immense sense of relief indicated that he had made the right decision about taking time out. So retirement wasn't a choice. It was a solution. What lay ahead of him, though? Maybe he should dig out his tennis racket, although that would still leave plenty of time. most of which Morwen would want to spend apart from him. They had been blessed with only one child, although he suspected you'd need to have sex more than a couple of times a year to have a decent chance of a brood. There had been no romance in their lives for quite a while, at least not for him. He took a large gulp of the amber liquid, fire rolling down his throat. When he had last attempted to initiate sex, she'd told him her life was so hectic that she wasn't in the mood. A frown came over Reese's face as he tried not to think of what was keeping her busy. Maybe his business partner. Screw VJ. Reese smiled grimly at his choice of words. A divorce was the answer. He doubted Morwen would want one. For all her bluster, she lacked confidence and even the simplest of organisational skills. Heaven forbid she'd have to do anything around the house except let workmen and cleaners in and beautify herself. It would cost him a small fortune, but half of a lot was still plenty. As long as he had a big, brawny saloon car and some decent grog, he'd be fine. Maybe he could catch the eye of someone pleasant who wasn't only after the lifestyle he provided. A lady who liked him, wanted simple pleasures like bar snacks, museum visits, and gentle walks. Reese was leaning back in his executive chair, beaming and imagining such a woman, when a loud rap came at the office door. He jolted upright, spilling his drink over his shirt. "Yes?" he shouted, sounding guilty. "I'm going up. Don't overdo it or I'll hear you snoring from upstairs." "Okay, darling. Merely a nightcap. See you soon." "You sound hammered already." "Not drunk. Happy." He waited for a response, even though he knew one wouldn't come, and took another rebellious gulp. A further feeling of contentment embraced him as the burning sensation seeped into his stomach. Was that a sense of peace over the decision he'd just made? The prospect of an argument in the morning with a hangover was unappealing, assuming he found the courage to ask for a separation. Better he waited a few days until he felt strong and located a flat to rent, so he had somewhere to go when she furiously showed him to their door. Yes, that was a plan. Another wave of relaxation spread through his body, radiating outwards to his fingertips and toes. He hadn't realised how tense he had been, how tightly wound. Now, a blissful, calm cocoon enveloped him. The edges of his desk blurred. The cityscape painting of London on his wall dissolved into an impressionist scene. His breathing slowed, each exhale longer, sweeter, but weaker than the last. As he gave a contented sigh, Reese's eyelids fluttered closed. Chapter 9. DCI Barton. Saturday. Barton awoke around 9 o'clock after struggling to drop off the previous evening. He hadn't wanted to leave Holly downstairs, but she had shooed him out of the lounge, saying if he didn't clear off, she'd be demanding her own baby. Even though it was early, shouts and howls could already be heard in the house, along with cries of "Don't kill me," but they were echoing from his youngest son's room. Luke, almost a teenager now, and his pals joined group WhatsApp calls and played Fortnite or Roblox for hours on end on their Xboxes and PlayStations. Barton thought of his own youth, cycling all over for miles, messing around in barns and haystacks, trees and fields, ponds and rivers, and worried again at a changing world. A cup of steaming coffee sat on his bedside table, giving him further proof everything was normal. After finishing his drink, he got up and pulled on the supposedly oversized hoodie his eldest son, Lawrence, had bought him for his 51st birthday. He stared in the mirror. The garment fitted perfectly and wasn't too big at all. After a quick wash and brush-up, Barton thundered downstairs and headed to the kitchen with his stomach rumbling. He could definitely smell sausages, and he could also detect laughter. He opened the door, and 3 faces turned towards him. Holly rose and pecked him on the cheek. "Lily, this enormous womble is my husband John, who you met last night." Lily gave Barton a sheepish smile. "Sorry about yesterday, and thank you. I was at my wit's end after my money ran out, and—"
"Nice to be properly introduced," interrupted Barton, "and no problem. As the song says, life is a roller coaster. I have to say, you look much better."
Lily had more colour in her face, but she still seemed frail. She had prominent cheekbones and thick brown hair. Her son had inherited her big blue eyes, which tracked Barton entering the room. Tommy appeared capable of chewing bricks. He thudded his hand on the high chair, which Barton assumed had been fetched from Lily's, and made a loud, high-pitched cooing sound. Holly reached over and stroked the soft down on Tommy's head. "Lily's going to stay here until Monday. Then I'll ring around and talk to the council and utility companies. Get her the right discounts and benefits now she's a single woman. Her boiler's fine."